Welcome to The Sleepy Professor. Tonight, we'll be talking about something you've lived with your entire life, yet never truly met face to face. Tonight, we're talking about time. What it is, what it isn't, and why everything you think you know about it might just be well wrong. So, get comfortable, slow down your thoughts, and let's begin drifting through the ticking illusion. What if I told you time doesn't actually exist? Not in the way you think. That the ticking clock, the numbered calendar, the steady rhythm you've trusted your whole life is a kind of shared illusion. You've been surrounded by time every day, shaped by it, guided by it, even stressed by it. But what if time isn't the fixed, universal current we've all been taught to believe in? What if everything you've ever known about it is just the surface of something much stranger and much deeper? We wake up and check the time. We plan our days around hours and minutes. We celebrate birthdays, set alarms, count down to holidays, and complain when we feel like time is slipping away. It's the background music to our lives, constant and dependable, so it seems. But scratch just a little beneath the surface, and it starts to get slippery. Is a minute always a minute? It feels longer when you're waiting. It disappears when you're enjoying yourself. Some days stretch endlessly, others vanish in a blink, and yet, the clock insists. Each hour is the same. Your heart, though, knows better. Your memory knows better. Your body knows better. Time isn't a thing you can hold. You can't see it or taste it. You can't store it in a box or lose it under the bed. And yet we talk about it like it's a resource spent, saved, wasted. But what exactly are we spending? What are we saving? What is it? This invisible stream we all swim in but never quite touch. The more we try to pin it down, the more it slips through our fingers. It's not a place you can visit. It's not a substance you can measure directly. And even the most brilliant minds in history, philosophers, physicists, mathematicians, still don't agree on what it actually is. To some, time is motion, the swing of a pendulum, the orbit of a planet. To others, it's change itself. Nothing moves without time. But then again, what if time doesn't move at all? What if it's us that are moving, carried forward by something we don't understand, something we can't even be sure is real? It's easy to say time is just the ticking of a clock, but a clock is just a machine. It doesn't know time, it just ticks. That ticking is something we assign meaning to. It's not measuring time itself, it's measuring intervals between ticks. The difference is subtle but profound. We've built entire societies around a concept that may not exist as we think it does. The ancient Greeks had two words for time, chronos and kairos. Chronos was clock time, the measured, counted, scheduled time. Kairos was different. It meant the right time, the opportune moment, the feeling of time. One was rigid, the other was fluid, and here we are, still torn between them. Our watches follow Chronos. But our lives, our memories, our dreams, our regrets, our longings, they all live in Kairos. You don't remember your life by the hour. You remember moments, feelings, fragments. And those fragments don't line up neatly with the calendar. They pop into view like stars in a night sky, scattered, bright, unmeasured. And here's the truly strange part. Physics doesn't require time to have a direction. The laws of the universe, the deep mathematics that govern everything from galaxies to particles, they don't actually care which way time flows. For them, forward and backward are the same. But to us, time always moves forward. Why? Why do we only remember the past and never the future? Why does milk spill, but never unspill? Why does a song play, but never unplay? Something about our minds, our memories, the way we organize our thoughts and sensations, creates this illusion of flow. We live in a story, and stories move from beginning to end. But maybe, just maybe, time itself doesn't. It's possible that time isn't a river at all, but a map already drawn, already complete. You're not being carried along it, you're exploring it. And each moment you call now is just the spot you happen to be standing on. The past didn't disappear. The future isn't waiting. They're all just there, waiting to be visited, or maybe not waiting at all, just existing. outside of your reach, but not outside of reality. And yet, despite all this, we feel time. We feel its pull in the tug of age, the hush of night, the ache of memory. We measure our lives in it. We fear losing it. We long for more of it. And even if it's just a construct, just a clever way to make sense of change, it's one of the most powerful ideas we've ever had. Because in the end, time isn't just something we live in, it's something we are. And maybe, just maybe, that's the biggest illusion of all. Imagine a world with no clocks, no watches, no alarms, no schedules, no hour hands circling a face, no digital numbers glowing in the dark, no beeps to tell you when to wake, to work, to stop. A world where time isn't chopped into slices and served by the minute. It's hard to picture, isn't it? Yet for the vast majority of human history, that was the only world we knew. Time, in that world, wasn't measured. It was felt. It moved in rhythms, not numbers. It flowed with the seasons, swayed with the winds, whispered through the branches of trees and rolled gently with the stars overhead. Time was not a tyrant to be obeyed. It was a companion to be observed. The first timekeepers weren't tools or devices. They were natural events: the rising sun, the lengthening shadows, the migration of animals, the bloom and fade of flowers. Our ancestors didn't check the time, they looked at the sky. They listened to birdsong, watched the angle of sunlight, felt the chill in the air as dusk approached. The passing of time wasn't abstract, it was tangible, woven into the world around them. The moon waxed and waned, casting its pale rhythm across night after night. The stars wheeled slowly through the heavens, returning each season to the same familiar positions, like celestial markers quietly repeating their pattern year after year. Long before civilization, people noticed these patterns. They watched as shadows moved and light changed. They saw the moon's cycle guiding tides and planting. They tracked the rising of certain stars that foretold the coming rains or the end of winter. These weren't curiosities, they were vital. Time meant survival. Knowing when to hunt, when to harvest, when to seek shelter. The rhythms of the earth and sky were clocks of a kind, even if no one had yet drawn a dial. Eventually, humans began to mark these rhythms more formally. They built monuments that aligned with solstices and equinoxes, great stone calendars standing silent in the landscape, shadows crossing thresholds at just the right moment each year. Think of Stonehenge, or the ancient Egyptian temples where light pierced the inner sanctum only on a sacred day. These structures didn't just keep time, they honored it. Time was not just a measurement. It was a mystery, a force that shaped life, yet could not be grasped. They saw it as something sacred, divine, sometimes terrifying. It wasn't regular or mechanical, it was wild, tied to gods, to nature, to the deep pulse of the world. But still, no one counted seconds. No one needed to. Why divide the day so finely when you could watch the sun rise and know the morning had begun? Why track hours when you could feel hunger or sleepiness and know what your body needed? Life moved in larger arcs, dawn and dusk, planting and reaping, birth and death. Time was a cycle, not a line. Not something marching forward, but something spiraling, returning, repeating itself like a song with endless verses. It brought a kind of peace, because nothing was lost. Everything came back, in its own time. There's a softness to that kind of time. It's not about efficiency. It doesn't demand productivity. It doesn't scold you for being late. In a world without clocks, you wake when your body stirs. You rest when the light fades. You eat when you're hungry, not when a lunch break says you should. Children are not told to hurry. Conversations aren't cut short because of appointments. Life flows, and you flow with it. But this natural sense of time, this deep intuitive rhythm, began to change when people gathered into cities. Trade, temples, governments, they all needed order, coordination. You couldn't run a market if everyone arrived when the sun is halfway up. So humans began to carve up time, to measure it. First with sticks casting shadows, primitive sundials that tracked the sun's slow dance across the sky. Then with water clocks, where droplets fell one by one, counting the seconds before anyone had words for seconds. Time became something you could watch, something you could manage, and, eventually, something you could control. But in those earliest days, the idea of being late didn't exist. You couldn't be late to a season. You couldn't be late to the moonrise. Time was spacious. It stretched out across the horizon like an open field. And even though we've traded that field for the tight corridors of schedules and deadlines, there's a part of you buried deep in your body, in your instincts that still remembers. Your bones remember the warmth of morning light, the slow sigh of evening wind. Your heartbeat knows the rhythm of walking, of resting, of waiting without checking the time. There's a beauty in remembering that kind of time. It asks nothing of you. It doesn't tick away like a countdown. It doesn't flash numbers in your face. It just is. Steady, quiet, slow. It holds space for you to be, not to do. And though modern life surrounds you with alarms and buzzes and flashing alerts, none of that changes the truth underneath. Time still lives in the sky. It still hums in the breeze and blooms in the trees. And no matter how fast the world spins, you can still step outside, close your eyes, and feel it not as something passing, but as something present. Maybe the oldest way to know time is the truest. Maybe time was never meant to be captured or conquered, only noticed, listened to, shared. And maybe, just maybe, when you stop counting the minutes, you start feeling them again. Right now, as you're listening, this moment is already gone. The words you just heard have slipped into the past. You can remember them, but you can't touch them. And the next moment, the one just ahead, it hasn't happened yet. You're always caught in between, hovering in the strange space we call now. But what is the now, really? It feels so obvious, so familiar. The present moment, the only thing you ever truly experience. And yet, the more you try to hold on to it, the more it slips away, like catching water in your hands. You can feel it, but you can't keep it. The present is elusive. It moves faster than your thoughts. Every sensation, every sound, every breath, by the time you're aware of it, it's already part of your memory. It's over. Think about that. You're not living in the now. You're living in the echo of it, always just behind it, a half step after the beat. You never quite catch the moment while it's truly happening. The moment is already becoming the past, even as you try to name it. And still, we speak of the present like it's real. We talk about living in the moment, being present, staying grounded in the now. It feels right, because the now is where everything happens. But try to measure it. Where does the now begin? Where does it end? If you define a moment as a second, what about the fraction of a second before it, or after? Cut time into smaller and smaller pieces, and eventually, you're left with something that can't be divided at all. A sliver, a shimmer, an instant so brief it has no width, like the edge of a blade. The present, it seems, has no thickness. It's not a space. It's a boundary, a threshold between what has already happened and what's about to. Some physicists argue that the present doesn't even exist in the way we think. They say that our brains, rather than experiencing time as it is, are creating an illusion of the present, stitching together sensory input, memories, and expectations to give us a feeling of continuity. Imagine reality as a series of still photographs, flashing rapidly. Your mind smooths the gaps, creates a narrative, lets you feel like you're flowing through time. But really, you're leaping from frame to frame, and the present is just the transition point. Your brain has to process signals, light, sound, touch, and each of those takes time, just a few milliseconds here and there. But all those delays mean that by the time your brain registers something as now, it's already happened. The world you think you're experiencing in real time, it's a delayed broadcast. Your brain edits it, replays it, fills in the blanks. You're not living in the present. You're watching a mental highlight reel of what just happened, constantly. And yet, you feel anchored in the now. You feel grounded, aware, conscious of this moment. That feeling is real, but maybe the present is more like a song note, hanging in the air. You hear it, you feel it, but it only exists because of what came before and what's coming after. Without a past to follow or a future to lean into, the present wouldn't mean anything. It needs the before and the after. It exists only in contrast. Think of how we experience time during moments of shock or awe. Sometimes, time feels like it freezes, like everything slows down, the world goes quiet, and you become acutely aware of every detail. That sudden stillness, that sensation of this is happening right now, it's powerful, but it's also artificial, created by your brain shifting gears, paying hyper-close attention, stretching the present wider than usual. Other times, moments pass in a blur. You look back and wonder where the time went. Did you even feel the present while it happened? Or were you too busy thinking ahead, remembering behind, drifting elsewhere? The truth is, we're rarely in the now. Our minds wander, pulling us into the past with regret or nostalgia, or launching us into the future with worry, plans, dreams. The present becomes a narrow ledge between two vast cliffs, and yet it's the only place anything ever happens. Every decision, every thought, every breath, it all occurs here. Not in the past, not in the future, only now. But if the now is so important, so vital, why is it so hard to stay in? Why does it constantly escape our grasp? Perhaps because the present is not a place to stay, but a place to pass through. A door that's always open, but never lets you stop. You walk through one moment into the next, endlessly, like waves lapping on a shore, always arriving, always retreating. And so, we try to capture the present. We meditate, we breathe, we slow down, we light candles, close our eyes, and try to feel the moment. And sometimes, just sometimes, we touch it. We find ourselves immersed, not thinking, just being. The warmth of sunlight on skin, the quiet hum of a room at night, a heartbeat, a deep breath, a moment so still it doesn't need words. And in those rare instants, time seems to soften. The line between past and future fades, and you just are. But still, even that passes. The now always moves. It's not a destination. It's a moving edge, a whisper that's gone the moment you hear it. But isn't that what makes it beautiful? It never stays, never waits, never repeats. Each now is brand new, and everyone carries with it the entire weight of the universe, the before, the after, the ever-shifting tide of existence. So, perhaps the secret isn't in holding on to the present, but in noticing it, welcoming it, letting it go, again and again, like breath, like waves, like sleep. 10 minutes can feel like a lifetime, or nothing at all. Sit in a waiting room with no phone, no conversation, and no windows, and every tick of the clock stretches like taffy. Now take those same 10 minutes and fill them with laughter, deep conversation, or a task you love, and they vanish, gone before you even notice. And yet, the clock ticks the same, each second evenly spaced, each minute measured out in the same rhythm. Time is supposed to be fair, right? But it doesn't feel fair. It bends, it shrinks, it stretches, it plays favorites. Time, as we experience it, is astonishingly biased. You've felt it. Everyone has. You wake on a Saturday morning, and before you know it, it's already evening. You blink, and the day is gone. But compare that to sitting through a dull meeting, or standing in a line that never seems to move. You check the time once, wait what feels like half an hour, and check again, barely 3 minutes have passed. It's uncanny. The numbers on the clock are steady, unchanging, unemotional. But your mind doesn't care about clocks. It cares about meaning, about emotion, about novelty and attention. And all of these things twist your perception of time until it's barely recognizable. When we're bored, time slows to a crawl. That's because our brains crave stimulation. When we don't get it, we start noticing the details we normally ignore: the sound of the clock ticking, the itch on your arm, the way the chair creaks when you shift your weight. Your attention, starved for something interesting, turns inward, and when that happens, you become hyper-aware of each passing moment. You're counting seconds without meaning to, and the more you notice time, the slower it seems to move. It's as if awareness itself thickens the flow. But then the opposite happens too. You get absorbed in something: drawing, reading, playing music, being with someone you love, and your sense of time vanishes. Hours pass unnoticed. You look up, shocked at how late it's become. Your brain, focused and engaged, stops tracking time. It simply doesn't see the need. You've entered what psychologists call a flow state, a deeply immersive mental zone, where action and awareness blend, and the clock loses its voice. In that state, time doesn't fly, it disappears. And yet, it's not just engagement or boredom that distorts time, it's emotion. Strong emotions have a powerful effect on how we feel. Time passing. Think of fear. A sudden scare, like a car swerve or a sharp noise in the dark, can make time feel like it slows down. You remember every detail, every second stretches. Your mind captures the moment in higher definition, creating denser memories. Later, when you recall the event, it seems longer because more of it was recorded. But interestingly, time didn't actually slow down in the moment. It only feels that way in retrospect. Your brain just went into overdrive, cataloging more data. Joy, too, changes time. When you're happy, time moves faster, and when you're in love, it evaporates completely. Hours spent talking with someone who lights up your world feel like moments. That warm timelessness you feel in someone's company, that's your brain saying, this moment is worth keeping, but not worth counting. And then there's stress, the anxious anticipation of a result, the pressure of a looming deadline, the restless countdown to something you don't want to face. Stress speeds your body up, your heart races, your breath quickens, but it slows your mind. You become stuck in time, fixated on it, unable to escape the feeling that it's dragging, deliberately cruel, stretching your suffering. Even memory plays a trick. When we look back on a vacation filled with new sights, places, and experiences, it feels long and rich, but a week of repetitive routine flies by in hindsight. Novelty gives the illusion of time well spent. Repetition blurs it all together, making days indistinguishable. That's why your childhood feels long, and your adult years feel short. As children, everything is new. Your brain is constantly learning, recording, marveling. But as we age, we see more of the same. The brain becomes efficient. It doesn't need to save the details. It compresses time, and that compression changes how we remember it. Time is deeply personal. It's not a single experience, it's hundreds of overlapping experiences, shaped by mood, focus, anticipation, and memory. Two people can sit in the same room for an hour and walk away having lived completely different hours. One bored, restless, watching the clock, the other dreaming, thinking, lost in thought. Time isn't fair. It doesn't treat everyone the same, and maybe it never was meant to. Even culture plays its part. Some cultures see time as something to be respected, measured, obeyed. Others see it as fluid, secondary to conversation, connection, life itself. In some places, being late is rude. In others, it's irrelevant. Our language reflects this too. Spend time, lose time, make time, kill time. We treat it like money, like something we own. But time is not a currency. It's not a possession. It's not yours to hold or give. It just flows, and we float with it. Or try to, because even though we know time is an illusion, we still fall for it. We chase it. We fight it. We beg for more. And in doing so, we forget that time isn't something to master. It's something to notice, to sit with, to feel as it passes, not to control, because you can't make time behave. You can only change how you experience it. And so the question becomes not, how much time do I have? But, what kind of time am I living? Is it slow and quiet, full of awareness and wonder? Or is it rushed and restless, slipping through unnoticed? Because ultimately, time may be unfair. It may be unpredictable, biased, even cruel. But within that unfairness, within that beautiful inconsistency, lies a truth that can't be measured by minutes or hours. Some moments are worth more than others, not because they last longer, but because they are felt more. And those are the ones we carry, the ones that live far beyond the ticking of the clock. Inside your mind, There is no ticking clock, no gears turning, no digital numbers flickering across a screen, and yet you have an uncanny sense of when things start and end. You can feel time passing. You can estimate how long you've waited, how long something has lasted, even how much longer you might need to wait. This internal sense of time is so natural that we rarely question it. We assume there's some kind of mental stopwatch running quietly in the background, counting every second. But the truth is far stranger and far less reliable. Your brain is not a timekeeper in any traditional sense. It doesn't track time with a mechanical rhythm or a fixed beat. Instead, it pieces together your sense of time using a collection of scattered tool attention, emotion, memory, and sensory input. There's no master timer, no central clock, just a network of systems constantly working together to create the illusion of steady time. And because it's not a precise mechanism but a patchwork of perceptions, your experience of time is deeply flawed and endlessly fascinating. One of the most important components in your perception of time is attention. What you notice and how closely you notice it changes how long a moment feels. When you're hyper-aware, when you're watching the seconds, waiting for something, bored or anxious, your brain picks up on every detail. It catalogues every sensation, checks in repeatedly, measures and compares. Time slows down, not because the minutes are longer, but because you're filling them with more data. Your attention makes time feel dense. Each second is packed with experience. But when your attention drifts, when you're daydreaming, focused elsewhere, or completely absorbed, those same seconds become feather light. Your brain records less, and so time seems to evaporate. Emotion plays an equally powerful role. Fear, for instance, can cause a moment to stretch. In high-stress situations, your brain goes into overdrive, capturing more information per second than usual. This heightened awareness creates the illusion that time has slowed. You're not moving through time more slowly, you're just experiencing more of it, in finer resolution. Later, when you recall the moment, it seems longer because the memory is more detailed. Joy and excitement, on the other hand, often compress time. Your brain isn't as focused on cataloging jits, immersed, present, letting go of the clock. That's why hours can vanish when you're laughing with friends or lost in a creative project. The less your brain monitors time, the faster it feels like it's passing. Then there's memory. Time, for your brain, is tightly woven into what you can remember. When you look back on an hour, a day, or a year, the way you judge its length depends on how much of it your brain has stored. Novel experiences, things that surprise you, stimulate you, or challenge you, get recorded with more detail. Later, those memories make that period of time feel longer. But when your days are repetitive, when nothing new happens, your brain compresses the experience. It saves less. And when you look back, it feels like time flew by, even if you were bored while living it. Your memory is not a neutral historian, it's a selective storyteller, and time is one of its favorite illusions. Scientists have tried to locate the parts of the brain responsible for this mysterious time sense, and what they've found is a network rather than a single organ. The basal ganglia, involved in motor control and rhythm, seem to help track short durations. The cerebellum, which helps coordinate movement and balance, also appears to play a role in timing. The prefrontal cortex helps with anticipation, an estimation or ability to predict how long something will take. And the hippocampus, the brain's main memory hub, shapes how we remember time and judge its length after the fact. These parts don't act alone. They communicate, cross-check, and improvise. The result? A rough, flexible, highly subjective estimate of how long things last, sometimes fairly accurate, often wildly off. This explains why your brain can be tricked. If a light flashes twice, very quickly, you might not be able to tell if one flash was longer than the other. But change the brightness, add sound, or introduce a delay, and suddenly your perception shifts. The context alters how you experience the time between events. Optical illusions aren't just visual, they can distort your sense of timing too. And then there's multitasking. When you split your attention between tasks, your brain juggles too much at once to accurately measure time. That's why an hour of multitasking can feel chaotic and short, while focused work feels slower, calmer, and more grounded. Even your body gets involved. Your heartbeat, your breathing, your movement, they all act like internal clocks. Athletes, musicians, and dancers often talk about having an innate timing, a rhythm they don't have to count. They feel it in their muscles, in their breath. When you walk, your steps form a kind of tempo. When you speak, your sentences follow a rhythm. These bodily cues help anchor your experience of time, even when no clock is present. But they, too, can be influenced by mood, stress, and health. When your heart races, when your breath is shallow, time feels faster, slower, depending on the context. Your body becomes part of the illusion. There's also a fascinating phenomenon known as the oddball effect. When something unusual happens, when you hear a strange sound or see something unexpected, it seems to last longer than everything else around it. Your brain stretches the moment because it's paying closer attention, trying to figure out what just happened. This effect can be so strong that researchers use it to test time perception in experiments. A single change in a pattern, and suddenly your mental clock resets. And then there's the return trip effect. You've probably felt it. The journey to a place feels longer than the trip back, even if they take exactly the same amount of time. Why? On the way there, everything is unfamiliar. Your brain is working harder, processing more, creating new memories. On the way back, you already know the route. It takes less effort to process, so the experience feels shorter. Time hasn't changed, your brain has. All of this points to a strange truth. The time you experience is a construction, built moment by moment, out of fragments of attention and waves of feeling. It's never exactly the same twice. You don't have an internal clock, you have an internal storyteller, one that is constantly editing, exaggerating, skipping ahead, or slowing down, depending on how your world feels in each moment. So next time you say, "That felt like forever," or "That hour disappeared," remember, you're not wrong. Time doesn't treat you fairly, and it doesn't try to. Because the clock inside your head isn't built for precision, it's built for meaning. It measures not the passing of seconds, but the weight of moments. The brain's clock is not a stopwatch. It's a mirror, reflecting how deeply you lived a moment, how much of it you truly felt. And that makes every second not just a unit of time, but a brushstroke in the strange and beautiful painting your mind is always creating. Why do the summers of childhood feel so long, so endless, like they stretched out forever under skies that never seem to change? Why does it seem, as we grow older, that time accelerates, that the weeks pass quicker, the months collapse into each other, and the years vanish in a blink? It's not just nostalgia speaking. It's not just longing for a simpler past. It's something real, something deep inside the architecture of your brain. Time, as we experience it, is tangled up with memory. And memory doesn't run on a clock. Think back to a childhood summer. Maybe you can recall the warmth of the sun on your skin, the scent of grass after the rain, the laughter echoing from an open window, the strange and magical boredom of long afternoons with nothing to do. You remember building something out of nothing, a fort, a game, a story. Every day felt like its own small world. That's the key. In childhood, every experience is new. Every encounter is fresh. Your brain is constantly processing unfamiliar information sites, sounds, places, people. And that effort, that work of making sense of everything for the first time, lays down deep, vivid memories. The brain records more. And the more it records, the longer the moment feels when you look back on it. When you're young, time is packed with novelty. The first time you rode a bike, the first day at school, the first snow, the first heartbreak, the first time you stayed up so late that night felt like another planet. These events are charged with emotion and learning, and the brain responds by storing them richly. They become bookmarks in your timeline, easy to return to, hard to forget. Childhood feels long not because it contains more hours, but because it contains more moments. As we age, something changes. Life becomes more familiar. We settle into routines. We take the same routes to work. We eat similar meals. We talk to the same people. Days begin to blur. Your brain, always looking for efficiency, stops recording the details of things it already understands. It compresses the routine, the repeated, the predictable. And when you look back, there's simply less there. Fewer bookmarks, less detail. And so, the time seems shorter. You could live the same number of hours, but if your brain doesn't capture those hours in vivid memory, they feel smaller in retrospect. It's like filming a movie in high definition versus low resolution. Same duration, but one is full of richness, and the other feels flat. This is why a year of travel feels longer than a year spent in routine. This is why your first year in a new city seems to last forever, while the 5th year disappears without a trace. Time perception also warps in real time. When you're learning something new especially, something challenging, time feels slower. The brain is fully engaged, paying close attention, adjusting constantly. A single afternoon spent trying something difficult or unfamiliar can feel longer than a week of business as usual. And it's not just perception, it's biology. The hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory formation, becomes more active in novel situations. It creates more markers, more reference points. It builds a denser memory. And those dense memories create the illusion of more time. This effect explains why time feels slower in childhood, but also why traumatic or highly emotional events seem to stretch. Fear, grief, all these emotions heighten our awareness and tell the brain, this matters. Remember it. The moment becomes etched in deep contrast, surrounded by silence and stillness. The seconds feel heavier, thicker. It's as if the world slows down to let the weight of it in. And though we might not wish to relive those moments, they remain anchored in our perception of time, long, vivid, unforgettable. But the real question is, can we slow down time again? Not literally, of course the seconds will always pass at their usual pace, but can we change how we experience them? Can we make time feel full again, rich again, stretched out and vibrant, like those distant summer days of our youth? The answer may lie in reclaiming novelty, in stepping outside routine, in noticing the world like a beginner again. When you travel, when you learn, when you break from the usual and allow yourself to truly engage with the unfamiliar, your brain reawakens to time. Even simple acts, taking a new route home, trying a new dish, learning a new skill can open up perception. The brain pauses, pays attention, records, and in doing so, it gives that moment weight, texture, memory, the kind of memory that makes time feel real, not just remembered. There's also power in slowing down, in doing less, and noticing more. When you let yourself be present, truly present, you start to stretch the moment. A walk in silence, a deep conversation, a quiet hour with a book. These aren't just peaceful activities, they're time makers. They add depth to the moment. They invite the brain to settle, to listen, to remember. And in the remembering, the moment grows. So much of our adult life is shaped by urgency, deadlines, notifications, appointments, alarms, everything speeding us forward. But that speed is deceptive. It doesn't make us live more. It just makes us remember less. We mistake motion for meaning. But the heart doesn't measure time in urgency, it measures time in moments that matter. This is why boredom, especially in childhood, isn't the enemy we often think it is. Boredom is spacious. It invites creativity. It gives the mind room to wander, to invent, to drift into states where the imagination takes over and time expands. Those slow, quiet afternoons where nothing happened. They may have been the richest hours of all because they were unclaimed, open, timeless, and we need that, still, even now. Time may feel faster as we age, but the story isn't over. You can still slow it down. You can still fill your days with firsts, with wonder, with depth, with things your future self will remember. Because in the end, it's not really about the years you've lived. It's about how much of that living your mind truly captured. And if you can give your brain something new to remember, you can stretch time again, one vivid moment at a time. Close your eyes and imagine time as a great, endless river, wide, steady, and perfectly calm. It flows without interruption, carrying everything forward at the same pace, every leaf, every drop of rain, every boat caught in its current. This was how people once imagined time itself: smooth, reliable, absolute, always moving forward, always ticking at the same rate, everywhere in the universe. No matter who you were, where you were, or what you were doing, time was the same. This idea didn't come from thin air, it came from the mind of one of the most influential thinkers in human history, Isaac Newton. Newton gave the world more than just a theory of gravity. He gave it a clock, not a physical timepiece, but a model of reality so precise, so elegant, that it would dominate science for over 2 centuries. In Newton's universe, time was a universal rhythm, unaffected by anything. Drop a ball today or tomorrow, and the math would work out the same. Fire a cannon here or on the other side of the world, and the equations would hold. For Newton, time was the invisible scaffolding upon which the universe hung. It didn't change, didn't bend, didn't care what was happening inside it. It was the backdrop, the stage on which everything played out. This view of time, absolute, mathematical, impersonal, was revolutionary. Before Newton, people measured time by the motion of the heavens, sundials, moon phases, the rotation of stars. Time was celestial, mysterious, even sacred. But Newton took time out of the sky and put it into equations. He turned it into a number, a variable, something that could be plugged in and solved. It wasn't mystical anymore. It was mechanical, predictable, scientific. And this predictability gave rise to an extraordinary new power. Suddenly, we could model the universe, not just observe it, but predict it. With Newton's laws, you could calculate how fast an apple would fall, how far a cannonball would fly, how a planet would orbit. And time was always part of the answer. Not a question, but a given. You didn't have to wonder what time was. You just had to know what time it was. Time became a tool, a ruler for measuring change, a grid laid over reality. This model of time was seductive in its simplicity. Everything obeyed it, everything fit, and for a long time, it worked beautifully. Clocks became more precise. Navigation improved. The Industrial Revolution thrived on schedules, factories, and train timetables, all powered by the assumption that time flowed equally for everyone, that it could be divided, counted, controlled. Newton's time turned the world into a machine, and humans into its careful operators. But beneath that elegance, a few quiet doubts lingered. Was time really so separate from everything else? Could it truly exist on its own, even if nothing in the universe moved? Newton's great rival, the philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, didn't think so. He argued that time wasn't a thing at all. It was a relation, a way to compare the order of events. Without change, without motion, there was no time. Time didn't exist independently. It existed only as a measure of difference. Imagine a universe where nothing moves, nothing happens. No stars flickering, no thoughts forming, no breath drawn. Is time still ticking in that silence? For Leibniz, the answer was no. But Newton's model won the day. It fit the data. It explained the orbits of planets, the arc of falling apples, the motion of tides. It worked. And so, for hundreds of years, science trusted it. And in daily life, we still do. We speak of time as if it's a thinger, real, solid thing. We waste it. We save it. We schedule it. We imagine it as a straight line, stretching from the past into the future. We place ourselves on that line, somewhere between yesterday and tomorrow. This is Newton's legacy, a world where time is constant, steady, absolute. But even in Newton's own time, the cracks had started to form. What happens when you move very fast? What happens near something very massive, like a star? What about light, which seems to behave differently from everything else? Over the centuries, these questions grew louder. And eventually, someone would come along who didn't just question Newton's time, but completely reimagined it. Still, it's worth pausing here to consider what Newton gave us. His concept of absolute time provided a foundation that allowed science to flourish. Without it, we couldn't have built the first precise clocks. We couldn't have developed physics, engineering, or astronomy in the ways that we did. Newton's time made the world feel knowable. It gave us order. It gave us control. And even if it was wronger, incomplete, it was also profoundly useful. But there's a price to that kind of time. It creates pressure, schedules, deadlines, a belief that time is always slipping away and that we are always behind. If time is absolute, then it's also unforgiving. You can't bargain with it. You can't stretch it or pause it. It moves forward, second by second, whether you're ready or not. Newton's time doesn't wait. And yet, this is not how we feel time. It's not how we live it. We've already seen how time bends under memory, under emotion, under perception. The clock on the wall may be Newtonian, but your experience is not. We are not machines. We don't move to the beat of a universal metronome. And that dissonance, that gap between what time is supposed to be and how time actually feels, is part of the mystery that still haunts us. Newton gave us one version of time, a strong, simple, elegant version, one that powered a revolution. But time, it turns out, is more than math, more than motion, more than a number that ticks forward. It's personal, it's inconsistent, it's strange. And if Newton imagined time as a steady river flowing endlessly in one direction, someone else soon would come along and show that the river doesn't always flow the same for everyone. Sometimes it bends. Sometimes it stretches. Sometimes it almost stands still. And sometimes, if you look closely enough, the river vanishes altogether. Time doesn't always flow the same. It bends, it warps, it stretches and contracts, depending on where you are and how fast you're moving. That may sound like science fiction, but it's not. It's reality. And it was Albert Einstein who revealed just how strange that reality really is. If Isaac Newton imagined time as a perfectly synchronized clock ticking identically for everyone, everywhere, Einstein took that clock and shattered it, revealing that there is no universal time, no shared ticking beat, no master clock in the sky. Instead, time is relative. It moves differently for different people in different places. And once you understand this, you can never look at the world or the universe the same way again. Einstein's theory of special relativity, published in 1905, began with a simple idea. The laws of physics are the same for everyone, no matter how fast they're moving. That might not sound revolutionary, but it has one bizarre consequence. The speed of light must be constant for all observers. No matter how fast you're traveling, if you measure the speed of light, you'll always get the same result. But how can that be? If you're running toward a beam of light, shouldn't it appear to come at you faster? And if you're moving away from it, shouldn't it seem slower? That would be true for anything else in the universe, but not for light. To keep the speed of light constant, something else has to give, and that something is time. If you move faster, time must slow down for you to keep light's speed from changing. And this isn't just a mathematical trick, it's real. It means that if you were to travel through space at a speed near that of light, your time would tick slower compared to someone back on Earth. You could spend what feels like a year on a spaceship, and when you return, decades may have passed on Earth. This is not a theory without evidence. It has been measured. Atomic clocks flown on airplanes and synchronized with identical clocks on the ground have shown that the flying clocks tick more slowly, not by much, just fractions of a second, but enough to prove that time is not constant. Time bends. This effect is known as time dilation, and it means that the faster you move, the slower time goes for you. The effect becomes significant only at very high speeds close to the speed of light, but the implications are enormous. It changes how we think about aging, travel, and even the nature of reality itself. And it gets stranger still. Einstein didn't stop there. In 1915, he introduced general relativity, a theory of gravity unlike anything that came before. Newton had described gravity as a force between masses and invisible pull, but Einstein said gravity is not a force at all. It's the result of massive objects, warping the fabric of space and time around them. Imagine placing a heavy ball on a stretched sheet. the sheet bends, and smaller objects roll toward the ball. That's gravity, according to Einstein. But here's the key: what bends isn't just space. It's space and time, together, space-time. And just as space can curve, so can time. This means that time runs more slowly in stronger gravitational fields. Near something massive, like a planet or a star, time ticks more slowly than it does far away in space. This too has been measured. Extremely precise atomic clocks placed at different altitude zone at sea level, one on a mountaintop tick at different rates. The lower clock, deeper in Earth's gravitational field, ticks more slowly. The difference is tiny, but it's real, and it's not just theory. It has practical consequences. Your GPS device wouldn't work without accounting for this. Satellites in orbit experience less gravity than we do on the surface, and they move quickly. Both of those factors affect their onboard clocks. Time runs faster due to weaker gravity and slower due to their speed. Engineers must constantly adjust those clocks to match Earth-based time, or your position on the map would be wildly inaccurate. The system only works because we understand that time is not universal. It is affected by both velocity and gravity. It's fluid, malleable, flexible. And then we come to perhaps the most haunting implication of Einstein's work. If time can be bent by gravity, and gravity becomes infinite in the heart of a black hole, then what happens to time there? According to general relativity, time essentially stops at the event horizon of a black hole. From the perspective of an outside observer, anything falling into a black hole appears to freeze, caught at the edge forever. But for the object falling in, time continues normally until it reaches a place where the laws of physics as we know them break down. It's a strange paradox. Two observers, two completely different experiences of time, both correct in their own frames of reference. This relativity of time is not just a curiosity, it reshapes the very idea of now. In Newton's world, there was a universal present moment. What was happening here was happening everywhere, at the same time. But in Einstein's universe, now becomes slippery. If you are on a spaceship moving very fast away from Earth, your present might align with someone else's past. Events that are simultaneous for one person may not be simultaneous for another. There is no shared now. Each observer carries their own timeline with them, stitched together by the path they take through space-time. The implications are dizzying. Time is not a backdrop, it's part of the stage. It bends, it warps, it dances with space in an inseparable way. Gravity doesn't just pull on objects, it slows the clocks of the universe. Speed doesn't just carry you through space, it stretches out your experience of time. In the Einsteinian universe, every object is moving through space-time on its own unique path, and every object experiences time in its own way. There is no master clock, there is only relativity. And so, we return to that quiet idea. Time is not what you thought it was. It is not constant. It is not equal. It can be stretched like elastic, bent by mass, slowed by speed. It can differ from one person to another, depending on how they move and where they are. This is not just a poetic metaphor, it's the literal truth of the cosmos. You are living in a universe where time is not fixed, but fluid, where the seconds that pass for you might not match the seconds passing for someone else across space, or even standing beside you under different conditions. And yet, despite this cosmic weirdness, your own time still feels steady. You breathe, and seconds pass. You sleep, and the night moves forward. Your world doesn't feel bent. But every time you glance at a GPS map, every time a satellite guides you, every time a black hole bends light from the galaxies behind it, you're witnessing Einstein's time. A universe where the clock is not the same for everyone. A universe that refuses to be simple. A universe where time, once believed to be absolute, has been revealed as beautifully, powerfully, relative. High above your head, silently orbiting the Earth, are dozens of satellites that make your world work without you ever noticing. They help you find your way home. They guide airplanes across oceans. They track weather, power communication networks, and keep financial systems in sync. And at the heart of all of this, invisibly humming inside each satellite, is a clock. Not just any clock, a highly precise atomic clock. And here's the twist. Those clocks tick more quickly than the ones down here on Earth. But at the same time, because those satellites are moving at thousands of kilometers per hour, their motion slows their clocks down. One factor speeds them up, the other slows them down. Welcome to the real-world consequences of Einstein's universe, where time isn't just a theory, but something engineers have to wrangle with every single day. It sounds almost impossible, doesn't it? That the same second could be longer or shorter depending on where you are and how fast you're moving. But it's true. GPS satellites orbit at altitudes of about 0 kilometers, where gravity is weaker. And in Einstein's world, weaker gravity means time flows faster. So their onboard clocks naturally tick ahead of ours on the surface. But because the satellites are also moving very fast relative to Earth, that speed causes their time to slow down. The result is a strange compromise. Their clocks end up ticking just a little faster, over about 38 microseconds per day faster than Earth-based clocks. That's not much, just a sliver of a second, but in the world of satellite navigation, it matters. If left uncorrected, that tiny error would build up. After only a couple of minutes, your GPS location would drift. After a day, you could be kilometers off course. The technology only works because we know that time flows differently up there, and we account for it. That might be one of the most quietly profound truths of our time. The devices in your pocket, your car, your watch, they all work because we've accepted that time is not constant. They function because we live in a relativistic universe. Engineers and scientists didn't just take Einstein's ideas as abstract. They built them into our systems. They measured the flow of time in space, adjusted for it, and used it to synchronize a global network of communication, transport, and positioning. Every time you use a map app to find a cafe or avoid traffic, you're not just using satellites, you're riding the warp and bend of time itself. And this isn't just about the satellites, it's about what those satellites prove that time can be manipulated, not on purpose, not yet, but as a consequence of where we are and how we move. It shows us that time is something physical, something with shape, a thing that can be twisted, stretched, offset. That's not just poetic language. It's measured, tested, verified. And it means that the experience of time is always local. Time is not a global constant, but a property of your position and motion in the fabric of the universe. It depends on how much gravity is around you. It depends on how fast you're moving. In one place, a second might pass. In another, a slightly longer second might pass. And from each person's perspective, neither is wrong. Think about how strange that really is. Imagine two identical twins. One stays on Earth, the other rides a spaceship that orbits the planet for years at high speed. When they reunite, the twin from the spaceship will have aged less. Not metaphorical, actually. Their heart will have beaten fewer times. Their cells will be younger. They will have lived fewer moments. The flow of time in the satellite was slower. It's not fantasy. It's not fiction. It's the way reality behaves. This relativity of time has led scientists to reconsider what we even mean by the present. We usually think of the present as a shared moment, something we all exist in together. But when you include satellites and high speeds and strong gravitational fields, simultaneity becomes complicated. What is now for you might not be now for someone in orbit, or for someone falling toward a black hole. Time, like space, becomes relative, personal, and once you see time this way, it becomes harder to say where the present really is. There's no master clock keeping track. There are only many clocks, all ticking slightly differently, all correct in their own context. This realization that time isn't a single stream but a mesh of countless rivers flowing at different speeds changes how we view the universe. It means that there's no single timeline, no absolute standard of past, present, and future. Instead, each person carries their own version of time with them, shaped by their motion, their position, their path through space-time. It's a universe made not of synchronized ticking, but of layered pulses, some faster, some slower, all unfolding together, all telling slightly different stories of the same shared reality. And still, despite all this complexity, we live mostly unaware. We trust that time on Earth is stable, and for most everyday situations, it is. The variations are too small to notice. The clocks on your wall, your phone, your wrist, they keep good enough time for daily life. But when you zoom out, when you step into the realm of satellites, spacecraft, planetary orbits, and cosmic distances, the relativity becomes undeniable. And so we build systems that take it into account, GPS networks that function, not despite the strangeness of time, but because of it. We correct for the way time flows differently in orbit. We calibrate, sync, and adjust. We treat time not as fixed, but as fluid. And in doing so, we live in a moment of profound scientific maturity. For most of human history, time was something we observed but couldn't understand. It came with the sunrise, the seasons, the movement of stars. Then it became mechanical, something we could count, slice, regulate. But now, in this new age, time is something we can measure in motion, map in curves, calculate in satellites and orbits. It's no longer just a backdrop. It's a dynamic part of the stage. So the next time you follow a blue dot on a glowing map, pause for a moment. That dot is being guided by invisible clocks flying high above the Earth, clocks that tick just a little faster than your own. Those tiny differences have been adjusted for, calculated, and corrected, and all of it rests on the truth that time is not the same for everyone. That even in a world of seconds and minutes, time remains beautifully unequal, not broken, not flawed, just endlessly strange, and quietly extraordinary. Pour a glass of water and watch it fall. Gravity pulls it downward. Droplets spill, splash, scatter. In a blink, the water is on the floor. Now imagine trying to undo it, not by wiping it up, but by making time reverse. Every drop would rise from the ground, hover mid-air, reassemble itself into the perfect shape of the glass, and pour itself upward, back into your hand. The absurdity of that image tells you something deeply familiar. Time only goes one way. It moves forward, always forward. You don't wake up younger. You don't uneat your breakfast. And the sun never rises in the west. There's an unmistakable arrow to time, a direction we all feel, but rarely understand. This idea, the forward flow of time, is so baked into our experience that we don't question it. We move from past to future as naturally as we breathe. Memory sits behind us. Possibility lies ahead. But what's strange is that most of the fundamental laws of physics don't care which way time goes. You could flip the direction of time in a physics equation, and it would still make perfect sense. Newton's laws, Maxwell's equations, the rules that govern quantum particles, all of them work just as well backwards as forwards. There's nothing in the math that demands time must flow in one direction. So why does it? Why does life feel like a one-way journey, where moments vanish into the past and can never return? The answer may lie in one of the most quietly powerful principles in all of physics, the second law of thermodynamics. It states that in any closed system, entropy tends to increase over time. Entropy is a measure of disorder. The more mixed up, jumbled, or chaotic a system becomes, the higher its entropy. If you take a deck of cards and shuffle it, you increase its entropy. If you take an egg and scramble it, the same thing. The direction of time, we feel the irreversible march from before to after, lines up perfectly with the increase of entropy. You can scramble an egg, but you can't unscramble it. You can stir cream into coffee, but not unstir it. These are processes that only go one way. So maybe the arrow of time isn't a force of nature, but a result of probabilities. There are far more disordered states than ordered ones. A shattered glass has more ways to exist than a perfect, intact one. When things move from order to disorder, they're simply moving toward the more likely arrangement. The universe isn't choosing a direction. It's just following the path of increasing statistical possibility. In this view, time moves forward, not because it's pulled, but because it's pushed by the sheer weight of probability. But entropy isn't just about broken things or messy rooms. It shapes everything: our bodies, our thoughts, our planet, our universe. Stars burn their fuel, radiating heat and light, moving from concentrated energy to diffuse waste. Our brains process memories in ways that leave physical trace neurons that fired, patterns that changed. And once those traces exist, they fix events into the past. That's why we remember what happened before, but not what's coming next. Memories are part of the entropy trail. They are a record of disorder already increased. Even causalicha sense that cause leads to effect follows the arrow of entropy. You flip a switch, and the light turns on. The switch comes before the light. You don't see the light flash and then decide to flip the switch. The direction of cause and effect lines up with the direction of increasing disorder. Energy is spent, heat is released. Information flow sand never in reverse. Now zoom out to the universe itself. In the earliest moments after the Big Bang, everything was astonishingly smooth, uniform, low in entropy. A strange thing, really, because that kind of order is statistically rare. Over billions of years, gravity began to clump matter together, forming stars, galaxies, planets. Entropy rose. Complexity emerged, and here we are now, in a universe teeming with movement, noise, structure and, slowly drifting toward ever more disorder. Not chaos necessarily, just entropy. More spreading, more mixing, more energy unavailable for use. One day, far in the future, the universe may reach a point where entropy is so high that nothing new can happen. No gradients, no usable energy, no clocks, no change. This is sometimes called the heat death of the universe, a silent, motionless eternity, the arrow of time, having run its course. But we're not there yet. And the question remains, why did the universe start in such an incredibly low entropy state to begin with? Of all the ways it could have been born, why did it start in such an ordered configuration that allowed entropy to rise? It's one of the deepest mysteries in physics. Some theorists think the laws of nature require it. Others believe it's a kind of cosmic fluke. There are even models where time itself might flow differently in other parts of the universe, possibly even backwards from our point of view. And yet, here in our little corner of space-time, everything agrees on one direction. The broken plate stays broken. The fire only burns forward. The universe expands, not contracts. All the arrows, thermodynamic, causal, psychological, cosmological, they point the same way. They say, from before to after, from memory to possibility, from low entropy to high. Even in everyday life, you can feel this arrow pressing on you. Every birthday marks another rotation forward. Every photo captures a moment you can't return to. We try to slow time with rituals, photographs, journals. We try to freeze it with stories, with architecture, with the ache of nostalgia. But no matter what we do, the arrow moves on. A soft, steady drift that carries everything away from what it was into what it is becoming. And maybe that's what makes life so meaningful. If everything were reversible, if time could loop or stand still, would anything feel precious? Would moments matter if they weren't fleeting? The arrow of time gives life a structure, a shape, a reason to cherish now, not because now is permanent, but because it isn't, because you don't get to live the same second twice. You don't get to rewatch your life with the same eyes. You are always changing, always moving forward, carried by entropy's quiet hand. So the next time you see milk swirl into coffee, or leaves fall from trees, or the night fade into morning, remember, you are watching the universe move in its chosen direction, not through command or intention, but through the deep logic of disorder. You're living inside a one-way flow, where the past is fixed, the future is unwritten, and the present this brief, glowing momentous, the only place anything ever happens. And that, in its own way, might be the most extraordinary thing about time. Not that it moves, but that it moves only forward, always forward. Imagine waking up tomorrow and finding that every clock on Earth has vanished. No watches, no alarms, no time zones, no calendar apps blinking reminders at you. At first, it might feel like freedom, no meetings, no deadlines, no sense of running late. But soon, something deeper would begin to unravel. Not just your schedule, but your sense of rhythm, your structure, your orientation in life. Because time isn't just something we use to organize our day sits. something that organizes us. It shapes how we live, how we work, how we sleep, how we dream, and how we see ourselves moving through the world. We are, in a very real way, creatures of time, shaped by its patterns even when we don't notice them. For most of human history, the rising and setting sun was enough. The world ran on natural rhythms, day and night, light and dark, the pull of the moon on the tides, the slow march of the seasons. People woke when it got light. They worked when it was warm. They ate when they were hungry and rested when they were tired. Time was a background hum, a rhythm you lived inside of, not something you watched or managed. But with the invention of mechanical clocks, time began to change its role. It moved from the sky to the tower, from the seasons to the schedule, from something we followed to something we obeyed. It was the monks, in many parts of Europe, who first imposed rigid time structures on daily life. They needed to pray at specific intervals, matins, vespers, compline. So they built early clocks to strike bells, marking the hours of devotion. But soon, this system spread beyond the monastery walls. Cities adopted bells to signal the start and end of the workday. Markets opened and closed on schedule. Ships navigated the oceans by tracking precise hours. Time became a kind of invisible architecturean, unseen grid, stretching across daily life, slicing it into uniform blocks. Then came the railroads. With trains came the need for schedules, and with schedules came the need for something more drastic: standardized time. Before the railways, every town kept its own local time, based on the sun's position overhead. Noon in one town could be several minutes different from noon in another. But trains couldn't operate on vague estimates. They needed precision. So countries divided themselves into time zones, and clocks were synchronized. What began as a convenience quickly became a necessity. And once the world had tasted synchronized time, there was no going back. Today, we live under what some call clock time, a system so deeply ingrained that it feels invisible. Wake up at 7, lunch at noon, meeting at 2, gym at 6, sleep at 10. But what we often forget is that this system isn't natural. It's constructed. It doesn't arise from biology or instinct. It comes from machines, commerce, industry. Your body doesn't care what time your phone says it is. It cares about light, about hunger, about rest. That's why jet lag exists. That's why shift work is so exhausting. Because your internal clock, your circadian rhythm, is constantly being bent to fit the external clock we've built around it. We've become so accustomed to structuring life this way that we rarely question it. We use time to measure productivity, to assign value, to structure relationships. We talk about quality time with loved ones, as though time itself can be portioned out, like currency. We speak of wasting time, of investing time, of spending time wisely, as though it were a commodity we could trade or lose. But time isn't a resource, it's a framework. And the more rigid that framework becomes, the more we risk losing something vital: the flow of experience, the freedom to wander, the space to simply be. Consider the modern work week. The idea of a 5-day work week with 2 days off is barely a century old. It came from industrial labor reforms, not from nature. And yet it defines how billions of people structure their lives. School bells mimic factory shifts. Corporate hours dictate traffic patterns, meal times, sleep schedules. And as technology pushes us toward 24/7 availability, the boundaries that used to define time, work and rest, weekday and weekend, night and day begin to blur. You check emails in bed. You answer calls on vacation. The clock becomes an endless loop rather than a daily rhythm. But beneath that constructed time lies something older: biological time, emotional time, the deep rhythms your body still remembers, the rise and fall of cortisol in your bloodstream, the shift in body temperature as night approaches, the way children instinctively slow down when dusk falls, or how animals stir as dawn arrives. These rhythms are not negotiable. You can ignore them, override them, distract yourself, but they're still there. They don't run on schedules, they run on life. And then there's psychological time, the time you feel. It doesn't tick evenly. It speeds up when you're rushing, slows down when you're waiting, stretches when you're afraid, collapses when you're lost in joy. A minute in a dentist's chair is not the same as a minute watching the sunset. A year full of novelty feels longer in memory than a year spent in routine. Your internal calendar is written not in hours, but in moments, in how deeply you lived them, how present you were. What's becoming clear is that our relationship with time is out of balance. We've allowed mechanical time to dominate, to define what matters, to dictate our worth. But the cost is mounting burnout, stress, disconnection, the sense that life is passing too quickly or not fully lived. We are measuring time, but we are not feeling it. We are scheduling life, but not always experiencing it. And maybe the answer isn't to throw away the clock, but to listen more carefully to the other kinds of time that still live within us. Imagine carving out parts of the day that aren't ruled by schedules. Imagine letting your body guide your rest and your work, your hunger and your creativity. Imagine trusting your sense of flow over your calendar. There's wisdom in structure, but there's also wisdom in surrender. In remembering that time is not just the ticking of hands on a dial, it's the rhythm of your breath, the tempo of your thoughts, the pulse of your days. In the end, the way we shape time shapes us. If we treat it as a race, we become hurried. If we treat it as a burden, we grow weary. But if we treat it as a living thing, something to be met, respected, danced with, we may begin to experience it differently, not as a pressure, but as a presence. Not something we chase, but something we share. And in doing so, we may rediscover what it means to be truly alive in Timino, just on the clock, but in the moment. You've heard the saying, time heals all wounds. But there's a deeper truth behind it, one that reveals just how intertwined time is with the human experience. See no, just as something that passes, but as something we feel, something that shapes our identity, our sense of purpose, and even our idea of reality itself. Because time isn't just out there, ticking away in the cosmos, it's also inside of us. It's embedded in every cell, every heartbeat, every emotion we've ever felt. Our lives are not measured in minutes or hours, but in change, in transformation, in how we grow, how we adapt, how we carry the past within us, and how we lean toward the future. Time, in this sense, is not an external measurement, it's a personal journey. Think about memory. Your memories are not stored like files in a cabinet, each neatly labeled by date and time. They're living, breathing reconstructions, shaped by emotion, colored by mood, constantly shifting every time you recall them. The moment you think back to something, your first kiss, your last goodbye, a childhood afternoon, you're not just retrieving a static image, you're reliving it, reshaping it, altering the edges. The past, in your mind, is always moving, and yet it feels solid, like a foundation. You use it to understand who you are, to make sense of the person in the mirror. But if time is fluid in memory, what does that say about the self built upon it? You are not the same person you were 5 years ago, not biologically, not emotionally, not mentally, and yet you carry within you a continuous thread, a sense of me that endures through all the changes. That thread is woven from moments, from the stories you tell about your past and the hopes you hold for your future. That sense of continuity, of identity, is built from time. But not from the kind of time you can measure on a clock. It's built from experience time, felt time. The kind of time that deepens with reflection and becomes sharper in memory, that blurs when you're lost and sharpens when you're awake to life. This connection between time and identity is why grief hurts so much. When you lose someone, you don't just lose a person. You lose the future you imagined with them, the shared time that now won't happen, the anniversaries that will go unmarked, the quiet, familiar rituals that stop mid-sentence. Grief is a rupture in time, a break between what was and what will never be. And healing from grief isn't about forgetting. It's about learning how to live in time again, how to carry someone's absence in your present while still walking toward tomorrow. Love, too, is shaped by time. It's not just a feeling in the moment, it's a layering of moments over time. the way someone's voice becomes familiar, the way you remember the sound of their laugh before they even make it, the shared rituals, the long talks, the quiet silences. All of these are time-woven experiences. Love grows in duration, in the deepening of knowing someone across days, months, years. It's not instant, it's temporal, and the stronger it becomes, the more tightly it's bound to memory and to the ache of time passing. Even hope is temporal. Hope is the ability to imagine a future different from the present, to believe in what has not yet happened. It lives in the gap between now and what could be. And when that gap feels wide enough to dream into, we feel purpose, direction. When it collapses, when we can no longer see a future worth reaching for, we feel despair. That's why hopelessness is so devastating. It's not just an emotional state, it's a breakdown in our experience of time. It's the sense that time no longer leads anywhere meaningful. But hope can return, because time keeps moving, and sometimes that movement, even when it feels empty, is what saves us. Because each new moment offers a sliver of possibility, and over time, those slivers add up. They become hours, then days, then years, and slowly, like the tide, life begins to return. Not the same as before, never the same, but forward. Always forward. That's the paradox of time. It never waits, and yet it allows for healing. It's relentless, but also forgiving. It won't return what's lost, but it gives us space to reshape ourselves in the aftermath. Creativity is another realm where time reveals its power. Every painting, every novel, every piece of music is a conversation with time, its memory reimagined, its emotion captured in rhythm and form. A song isn't just a series of notes, it's time made audible. A novel is time stretched into narrative. A painting freezes time into color and shape. The artist takes lived moments and reorders them, reframes them, offers them back to us in a way that lets us feel something timeless. That's why art endures, because it speaks across time. It collapses years into a glance, centuries into a single phrase, and reminds us that time is not just something we pass through, it's something we can shape, something we can share. Our relationship with time is not one of passive observation. We don't just exist in time, we create within it. We dream into it. We build legacies that outlast our bodies. We raise children who carry pieces of us into futures we'll never see. We plant seeds in the hope that someone else will enjoy the shade. These are acts of time travel, in their own way, not through machines, but through meaning, through memory, through legacy, through imagination. Every time you tell a story from your childhood, or write a letter, or take a photograph, you are engaging in a kind of time bending. You're reaching across the present to touch what was, or to influence what will be. And yet, in all this forward motion, there's also a need for stillness, for presence, for moments that aren't about what's next or what's gone, but what is. The taste of warm tea, the sound of leaves rustling, the quiet hush of snowfall. These moments don't move time, they hold it. They remind you that, in the rush to become, there is also a place for simply being. And sometimes, in that stillness, you discover something timeless, a connection to life that doesn't depend on memory or anticipation, just breath, just awareness, just now. In the end, time isn't just something that happens to us, it's something we navigate, something we interpret, something we shape. It's a companion and a teacher, a burden and a gift. And the more we pay attention to it, not just by counting it, but by feeling it, the richer life becomes. Because time, at its core, is not just a measure, it's a medium, a canvas on which the human story is painted. And what we do with Itho, we move through it, how we share it, how we honor. It determines not just the length of our lives, but their depth. There's a moment that comes to everyone sooner or later, the sudden, quiet awareness that time is moving, and it's moving without your permission. It's not dramatic. It doesn't come with sirens or alarms. It arrives in the smallest ways. A glance in the mirror that feels unfamiliar, a song you loved in your teens, now playing on a classic hits station, a conversation with a younger person who doesn't recognize a reference you thought was universal. That's when it hits you not just that time is passing, but that you are changing. That the person you used to be isn't quite here anymore, and the person you're becoming hasn't fully arrived. You're caught in between, in motion, in transition. And whether you resist it or embrace it, time is pulling you forward. But what does that really mean? To age, to move through time, not just biologically, but consciously. It's not just wrinkles and birthdays. It's something deeper. It's the slow layering of experience. The accumulation of joy and regret, of love and loss, of certainty and doubt. Each year adds another coat of paint to the canvas of who you are. You don't notice it happening day by day. But when you step back, when you compare who you are now to who you were 10 years ago, you see the shift. The way your thoughts have deepened, the way your patience has stretched, the way your priorities have quietly rearranged themselves. Time, in this way, isn't just something that happens to your body, it's something that sculpts your mind. It softens some edges, sharpens others. It teaches you to let go of things you once clung to, and to hold tightly to things you once overlooked. You begin to realize that some moments you rushed through were the ones you should have lingered in. That some people you thought would always be there were only passing through. That youth isn't just about being young, it's about not knowing how rare everything is. As you grow older, time takes on a different texture. In childhood, it stretches wide and slow, like a field with no fences. A single summer could feel like forever. But with age, the weeks speed up, the years blur. You find yourself saying things like, "Can you believe it's already July?" Or, "That was 5 years ago." It feels like yesterday. This compression of time is not just perception, it's psychological. When you're young, everything is new. Your brain records each unfamiliar detail, and the richness of memory gives the illusion of a longer span. As the novelty fades, your mind starts recording less. Routine takes over. Memory becomes sparse. Time, in reflection, seems shorter. But this isn't something to fear. It's something to understand. Because knowing that time feels faster as we age gives us the power to change how we experience it. We can slow it down, not by stopping the clock, but by living differently, by seeking novelty, even in small ways, by staying curious, by doing things for the first time again, travel to a new place, learn a new skill, talk to someone whose world is different from yours. These are not just hobbies, they're strategies for expanding time, because time isn't just a linear, it's a story. And stories feel longer when they're full of chapters worth remembering. Time also brings clarity. In youth, everything feels urgent. Every choice feels permanent. Every mistake feels like the end of the world. But time teaches perspective. You begin to understand that most mistakes can be corrected, most wounds do heal, most changes are survivable. The things you once feared become manageable. The things you once ignored become important. And slowly, you learn that wisdom isn't knowing all the answers, it's knowing what questions are worth asking, and understanding that some answers can wait. There's also a strange beauty in watching others move through time, watching a child learn to speak, then read, then form their own ideas, watching parents age, their pace slow, their roles shift, watching friends evolve, drift away, come back. These are the rhythms of life, and they mirror your own. You're not alone in this movement. Everyone is carried by the same current. Everyone is learning, adapting, grieving, loving in their own way. Time reveals this shared humanity, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a quiet unfolding. It reminds you that change is the rule, not the exception, that nothing stays fixed. And that's not a tragedy. That's what gives life meaning. Because if everything stayed the same, if time were frozen, there would be no growth, no second chances, no redemption, no forgiveness, no learning. Time gives us the gift of becoming. It allows us to try again, to heal from what hurt us, to say what we couldn't say before, to make peace with the past, even if we can't change it. It gives us the power to choose differently, to love better, to live more honestly. It gives us the space to evolve. There's a humility that comes with a Jenga recognition that you are not in control of everything. That time moves on whether you're ready or not. But within that humility is a kind of grace. You stop fighting the current so much. You learn to float a little. You learn to notice more. The warmth of sunlight on your skin, the weight of someone's hand in yours, the way music can break your heart and heal it at the same time. These are the things time sharpens, not because they are rare, but because you finally understand how precious they are. And maybe that's the great paradox of time. It takes things from us, youth, moments, people, but it also gives us something in return: depth, understanding, gratitude. You begin to see that every age has its own beauty, that there's a kind of freedom in knowing who you are, that even though you can't go back, you can go forward with more intention, more kindness, more awareness of the fact that this moment, this exact secondis, already becoming memory, and that what you do with it matters. So yes, time moves, it flows, it changes us, but we are not helpless in its current. We can shape the way we move through it. We can choose how we carry our past, how we build our present, how we imagine our future. Time is not a thief, it's a companion, a quiet, steady presence that walks with you from one version of yourself to the next. And if you listen closely, you might hear it whispering not to hurry, not to worry, but simply to be here, to live, to pay attention, because this moment, like all the others before it, will never come again. And that, in the end, is what makes time so extraordinary, not its length, but its fragility. Not how much we have, but how deeply we choose to live it. Somewhere in the vastness of the cosmos, a supernova explodes. Its light travels through space for thousands, even millions of years, before it ever touches your eyes. When it does, what you're seeing is not the explosion itself, but the echo of it, the delayed arrival of something that happened long ago. You're not looking at what is, but what was. And that simple cosmic truth reveals something quietly profound. In many ways, you never see the present. You only ever witness the past. Whether it's starlight or sunlight, the expression on someone's face, or the fall of a raindrop, your brain is always just a few milliseconds behind, catching up, decoding signals, building a picture of now from fragments that already slipped away. Reality, as you experience it, is a delayed translation. This isn't just poetic, it's physical. Light takes time to travel. Nerve signals take time to transmit. Your brain takes time to process. That delay is small, nearly imperceptible, but it's always there. You exist in the present, but you perceive it after the fact. There's always a gap between what happens and what you're aware of. And once you understand that gap exists, the question becomes more unsettling. If you're always behind the moment, how do you ever know what's real? How do you trust that what you're experiencing is truly now, and not just a shadow of a moment that already slipped through your fingers? It's even stranger when you realize that there is no single, universal now. What is happening for you in this moment may not be happening for someone else in theirs. If a person is standing on a mountain and another is deep in a valley, the flow of time, thanks to the warping effects of gravity, is slightly different for each of them. Their nows are not synchronized. Their clocks tick at different speeds. Einstein showed us this, not just in theory, but through testable, repeatable measurements. And it means that the present is not a fixed place in time. It's a personal, local event, a slice of reality unique to your position, your motion, your experience. So when we speak of the present moment, what are we really talking about? It's not a single dot on a timeline, the way we often imagine it. It's more like a cloud, a blur, a window of perception that's always moving, always just out of reach. We live in that blur, making meaning from it, calling it now. But now is not static. It's not a point. It's a span, a brief, shifting interval where your senses and your thoughts meet the outer world. And yet, despite its fleeting nature, the present is the only place life actually happens. The past is locked in memory, the future in imagination. But this moment, this sliver of time unfolding right now, is where everything you are comes into focus. It's where choice lives, where love is given, where mistakes are made, where breath is taken, where everything real converges. The irony is that even as we speak of the present as precious, we rarely inhabit it. We're constantly reaching backward or forward, analyzing, anticipating, replaying. Our minds are time machines, and they rarely settle in the now. But if we could stay, even for a few seconds, we might see something extraordinary. Because the present is alive, it's electric with potential. Every second births infinite possibilities. Every blink is a reset. The person you were a moment ago is not the person you are now. In the time it took to read this sentence, your body has changed. Cells have divided. Atoms have shifted. Thoughts have passed. You are in motion, always. And that motion is what defines you not as a fixed object, but as a process. You are not a noun. You are a verb. And the present is where that action unfolds. That's why practices like meditation or mindfulness aren't just spiritual or psychological, they're neurological. They train the brain to notice the present, to anchor awareness in a space that usually slips by unnoticed. To sit with your breath, your heartbeat, your thoughts, without judgment or distraction, is to slow down the river of time and see its surface more clearly. It doesn't change the clock. It changes your experience of it, and in doing so, it changes you. But the present isn't always peaceful. It can be overwhelming, intense, painful. The now holds not just joy but grief, not just serenity, but fear. Being present means being with whatever is happening, even if it's hard, especially if it's hard, because avoidance doesn't make time stop. It just makes the present feel empty, stretched, disconnected. But presence, even in difficulty, gives time its weight. It turns seconds into something real, something felt, something lived. The present is also where connection happens, when two people truly meet, not just physically, but emotionally, consciously. It happens in the now, not in stories about the past or dreams of the future, but in shared presence, eye contact that lingers, silence that doesn't need to be filled, laughter that erupts spontaneously. These are the kinds of moments that etch themselves into memory, not because they were long, but because they were full. The present moment, when truly inhabited, expands. It becomes bigger than the clock. It holds more than you expect, and those are the moments we carry with us. Science may tell us the present is an illusion, that it's a neurological construction, that the brain is always catching up, and in a way that's true. But illusion or not, the present is all we have. And maybe its impermanence is what makes it sacred. You can't freeze it. You can't hoard it. You can only experience it. One breath, one blink, one heartbeat at a time. And in that experience, everything unfolds. Joy and sorrow, hope and fear, creation and loss. The entire human story, lived one fleeting now at a time. So while the present may be scientifically elusive, philosophically debated, and neurologically delayed, it remains the stage on which everything that matters occurs. And maybe the point isn't to define it, but to feel it, to stand still inside it long enough to realize that this moment right here, right now, was the only moment in which you are truly alive. Everything else is memory or possibility, but this is real. And if you can feel that, even for a second, you've touched something timeless. Imagine for a moment that time isn't something you pass through, but something you stand inside of. That instead of flowing like a river, it's a vast landscapean, endless, multi-dimensional terrain stretching in all directions. In this landscape, every moment that ever was or ever will be exists simultaneously. The day you were born, the day you die, every breath you've taken, every decision you didn't make, every version of your future, spread out like constellations across an invisible sky. Time, in this view, is not a journey with a beginning and an end. It's a map, and you are not a passenger on a single road, but an explorer wandering through infinite paths, each step an intersection of now and next, choice and chance. This idea isn't just poetic, it's a serious possibility within physics. The notion that past, present, and future all coexist, that time doesn't flow, but that we move through a fixed temporal dimension. And if that's true, then what does it mean to be alive? In this block universe, as some physicists call it, every moment is equally real. Your third birthday still exists. Your final hour already exists. Your greatest joy, your deepest heartbreak, they're all somewhere in this grand architecture of time. They don't vanish once they pass. They're not erased. They remain, unseen perhaps, unreachable, but real, like rooms in a mansion where the lights have gone out. And maybe this explains why some memories never fade, why certain moments return with such intensity, it's as if you're there again. Maybe some part of you is still there, still laughing in that room, still holding that hand, still saying the thing you wish you'd said differently. If every moment lives on, then maybe memory is more than recall. It's a form of time travel, a sensory echo from a room you once walked through. But if the future already exists too, what does that say about choice, about free will? Are we following a script, reading lines already written? Or do we carve the path as we go, creating new rooms in the mansion of time with every decision? It's a question that has haunted philosophers and scientists alike. If time is a block, then everything has already happened. But if time is dynamic, it unfolds with us, then maybe the future is still being built. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. Perhaps all possible futures exist, and which one you live depends on how you walk, not in some grand, fate-bound way, but in the quiet, ordinary choices that seem small until they aren't. Every decision a fork, every action a brushstroke, every moment a doorway to something else. What makes this even more powerful is the growing realization that time may not be fundamental at all. Some physicists now believe that time is not the most basic layer of reality. That underneath time, beneath the ticking of every clock and the beating of every heart, there lies something else, something timeless. Equations that don't even reference time. Structures that exist without sequence. A universe where time emerges not as a core ingredient, but as a side effect, an illusion born from deeper laws we don't yet fully grasp. If that's true, then what we experience as time, this constant motion, this flow from before to after, might be more like the way a rainbow appears when sunlight hits water. Not something that exists independently, but something that emerges from interaction, from perspective, from the way consciousness meets the structure of reality. And consciousness may be the missing piece, because no matter how much we measure and model time, we still experience it subjectively. No two people live time the same way. A moment of silence can feel eternal or fleeting. A year of grief can feel like a century. A single kiss can hold an entire lifetime. And these distortions, these stretches and compressions of time, don't come from physics. They come from being human, from emotion, from memory, from awareness. In this sense, time is deeply personal. It's not just something that happens around you. It's something that happens through you. You shape it, you stretch it, you carry it. And perhaps, more than anything, time is a mirror. It shows you who you are becoming. It reflects the distance between who you were and who you want to be. It reminds you that life is not just about what you've done, but about what you've chosen not to do. That every moment you hesitate or forgive or reach out or walk away becomes part of your timeline. It can't be erased. It can only be lived. And in that way, time gives you both a burden and a gift, the burden of impermanence and the gift of transformation. We often ask where time goes, but maybe that's the wrong question. Time doesn't go anywhere. It stays. It becomes part of you, part of your body, your memories, your voice, your silences. The real question is, where do you go? Who do you become in the passing of time? How do you carry it? Do you let it slip by unnoticed? Or do you press yourself into it? Leave fingerprints on every hour. Make the days count rather than just counting them. Because time, whether fixed or flowing, mathematical or mystical, is the medium through which your entire life is painted, and you are the artist. So maybe time isn't the enemy, it's the canvas. Maybe it doesn't steal from you, it reveals you, moment by moment, choice by choice. And if you live fully into it, if you pay attention to the texture of your days, you might find something extraordinary hiding in the ordinary. You might find that time isn't just passing, it's becoming. That every second is not just something to survive, but something to shape, to fill, to cherish. That even though you can't hold on to it, You can live inside it, with presence, with grace, with awe. And in doing so, you give it meaning. Because in the end, time is not what we think it is. It's not a line, or a clock, or a countdown. It's a story, and you are the one writing it.